So micro-communities. I think that from what I have observed in 2019, and I have observed different model of coming together, communities, good neighborhood, some call them new society, eco-societies, some try to create a new country, a bit like Liberland. Some will create close community in the jungle or in the nature. There was even those projects on an island where they put people coming together and then they're gonna live there independently. I have seen really a lot of initiative, but the communality, what is it, guys? It's basically solution for people to come together and regain something in the context of, I would say, global tyranny, global mandates, where you're being told how you should be living your life. It's no surprise that there's a desire, willingness, need for people to come together and really support each other, to reconnect. In a context where people are being disconnected from each other, don't be surprised that there's a need for connection. There's a need for connection, but it doesn't mean that you should adopt all the type of solution that you see around you regarding connection, because some solutions are scams, some solutions are being built because they know that you have a strong need to reconnect, you have a strong need for safety, for security for your kids. And so you are ready to believe into those solutions without sometimes even using your brain and your critical thinking and going into it and allocating money, and bam, that was a scam. So be very careful about that. Be aware of the solution around you, the potential traps, and I'm talking about it openly so that you don't fall into them, because I have friends who personally fall into them and they lost a lot of money, okay? Not just money, time and energy as well. And time is your actually critical, the most important asset in your life is your time. And so looking at all the solution and observing, I see micro communities as one of the most relevant solutions, and I want to try it myself because I see some micro communities that are successful. So what do you mean by micro community, Julian? I mean a small group of people coming together, usually on a single piece of land, and then supporting each other. They have defined on how they are going to live together on the piece of land. It's not about like we are all living in the same house. Be careful and don't be scared about this model. We're not talking about this at all. We're talking about maintaining your independence, yet being part of a group that help you, that supports you and help to weather whatever is coming around you and your way. Because we are not out of the wood as many of you understand it. The agenda in place is basically rolled out over years, if not potentially decades. And in that context, you need to build resiliency, you need to build autonomy to be able to face it and go through it. And many people will not go through it, unfortunately, because they are not well prepared for that. So I think this model, although it's not the model you may have thought about you would ever try or live in your life, I think it's the most adapted model. And for me, it's like working in change management for 25 years. So I have this ability to go toward and adopt flexibility. And I think I need to be flexible. Yet it's good to have your own house, to have the cars, to have a swimming pool, to have the stuff for yourself and your family, and then operating within society and being happy and stuff like that. But when society is going toward the wrong way, we've got to pause, step back, and is that actually the best model that I can adopt? Should I look potentially at other model and potentially try them. I'm not asking to jump into them and then leave them and force yourself into another type of box. I'm asking you to be open and potentially look at them, potentially try them. So let's go a bit deeper into micro communities, the advantage that I'm seeing in the current context. So I arrived in Paraguay 6 months ago, and I am not, this time, I'm not interested into buying a property, a large piece of land and a house and having all the car, motorbike and whatever I need for my family. I'm interested in teaming up with other people, and then based on the outcome that we are after, provided we align on the outcome. So the outcome that I am after, it's happiness, it's well-being, it's health of the, so well-being as health of the body and health of the mind, which I think, from my perspective, maybe not from your perspective, but from my perspective, it's critical in the current context. In a context where you've got more and more toxins around you, be it from food, from water, from things like chemtrail, from things like medical industry, then you've got to be careful. And so if you want to maintain well-being, so health of the body and the mind, which are actually connected to each other, right? If you don't feel well mentally, then your body is not there as well. If your body doesn't feel well physically, then your mind is also disconnected. It's not at its best, right? And so to go toward this outcome, given that there's quite a number of people who are looking for that, I'm saying, why don't we team up? Why don't we find a model that's working, that meets our wants and needs, but doesn't oblige us to go toward individualism again, like we are used to in the West. Can we develop really, build a team? Can we develop mindset in terms of collaboration, working as a team? And I think micro communities is a model that is adapted. You don't need to start with 20 people. Start small with a number of people. It could be 2 families, it could be 3 families. But the key point here is that we don't fall into the pitfall that we're used to fall into to a certain extent. Let me explain. We've got to have an approach of how do we work together. In Paraguay, when I arrived there, I realized there's a lot of ingredients available. There's land available, okay? There's people. There's people with, who are looking after themselves, who promote their well-being, health of the mind, health of the body. People that seems to be seeking happiness, although they have difficulty to find it. There is natural resources. There's water. There's food. There's sun. There's land available. There's foreigners who have skills in different domains. I've seen really incredible people here with really great skills into farming, finding water sources, healing, aromatherapy, treatment through plants, alternative treatment, really a lot of skills available. But yet, no one is actually, they have difficulty to find a recipe, something that's working. It's a bit like being at a table, you've got all the ingredients to make a super cake, but you don't know the recipe. And if you don't know the recipe, you can iterate forever and not really making a great cake. And it's a bit the same situation in Paraguay. There's a lot of ingredients available, but people don't know the recipe. So they're gonna try stuff, and it's about trial and error. They fail, they try to start again. But failure costs here can be quite high if you have invested quite a lot of money in your property, a lot of time. For instance, if you start to grow things, first years might be kind of okay, second years, you get nothing, third year, so like it could be in terms of years. And so you want to limit the likelihood to fail. And that's the reason why I want to start to talk about best practices as well. So the advantage of that micro community in the current context is that instead of coming to Paraguay and purchasing property for 200 or 300,000 euros, given that people in the West coming here are like, oh, the prices are cheap here, so we're gonna put the same, roughly the same amount of money we put in the West, but we've gone 10, 15, 20, 30 hectares, we've got a big house. You don't need to do that. The failure cost can be pretty high here. You are in a new context, in a new environment. There's a lot of things that you don't know. And so going for teaming up with other people enable you to reduce the entry cost. Instead of paying 300,000 euros or USD, then the entry ticket might be just 40,000 USD, 50, 60, 70,000 USD. It's much lower. Meaning that if for any reason you are going to fail, because it's possible, things happen in life, or you're going to move out of Paraguay for any reason, then what you need to get back is not it's not a lot. Relatively, it's not a lot versus potentially your personal wealth. Right? If you put 300,000 in and then for any reason you don't like it or you want to get out, good luck to try to sell out your property. It's a bit the situation of a lot of German people who arrive there, overpaid for pieces of land, and now are trying to find some foreigner to purchase piece of their land, or whatever they're trying to sell their lands, but at the same price or even higher price than they bought the stuff. But people don't buy because they know that if you spend some time here, you actually know the market price. And a lot of things are overpriced, definitely. So one advantage is to spend less to enter, to go and try something. Another advantage is to work as a team, and I think it's very important. We are in a new country. Also, a lot of us are competent people, so we've got wealth, we've got skills, but yet it makes more sense to work as a team. So I know there that it is not easy for a lot of you guys. A lot of you have an individualistic mindset. You've been used to competition, to compete with other people, be it at school, at work. I used to be like this. I have totally reversed my mindset because I believe more now into the power of working as a team than doing it individualistically, because when you do it individualistically, there's no limit, right? It's like, okay, let's go. Let's work 16, 20 hours a day. But good luck with that, to do that for decades. You're going to pay the price at some point. And that's not fun. That's not fun. You are by yourself. So here there's a lot of people who would like to team up. They've got to get rid of this individualistic mindset and competitive mindset. And it's mostly about getting rid of your ego, right? That's it. A lot of people here that I meet have a massive ego, and it takes time. It takes time for them for me to not play their game, to not enter any competitive game or this type of mindset, and really have a type of dialogue that get them to progressively evolve. So the advantage of the micro community is you team up with great people that support you, and it's important to find a support network here in Paraguay. Not just people that, yeah, you know that this guy is living in this town, but if you can actually be on the same piece of land, then there's more synergy and interaction. Talking about synergies, it's more efficient to build and to create something together. You want to build a property, you want to build different house, you want to build a natural swimming pool, you want to build infrastructure. If you do it as a team, it's better. People in the group will have different skills. The work should take less time. You're gonna avoid less pitfalls. You're gonna see different perspectives. You're working as a team. It's all positive to me to reach the outcome. So you're gonna be able to interact together, do action together, plan together. It doesn't mean that we do everything together and then it's only the vision of the group. You're gonna have aspects that are managed individually. You've got your own space on the piece of land. You manage your own space. You want to build your house the way you want it, it's fine. But there will be aspects that need to be managed as a team. Common spaces, for instance. And it's fine provided you've got a good operating model. And I call that basically almost operating agreements on we've defined together how is it that we want to take decision, for instance. How do we let people come in? What's the process? How do we get people out? What's the process? If all this has been clearly defined from day one, there's not much problem. There's clarity on that, okay? But it does need to be defined, otherwise you're gonna fall into a situation where people disagree and potentially the group fall apart. People want to get out, but there's no defined process for that, right? So that's a number of advantage. I would say at a very high level, in a context of uncertainty, you want to keep your option open. And I think micro-community is a very good way to do that. In the way that, for instance, we would define how can people exit the project. Well, I treat this basically as a project because a project can fail or succeed. But leave your option open. Once you have purchased a property of 200,000 or 300,000 euros, how can you leave your option open? You can't. When you've put 50,000 USD into a community and then you've got a clear path on how you can exit, for instance, and sell your share of the property or whatsoever, then you leave your option open because you can stay, but you also have a clear path out if needed at any point in time. Don't forget that a lot of you arrive in Paraguay, but like the recurring talk that I hear is that we're not going to stay in Paraguay forever. How long are you going to stay in Paraguay? I don't know. Most of the people don't know. I actually don't even know for myself. I would say, okay, 5 years? Yes, very likely, given what's happening in the world. But then in 5 years, let's see, right? May move back to Asia, may go to another place. The situation remains dynamic. So in that context, I want to leave my option open. And one of the way to leave my option open could be, for instance, to do rental, so that you don't commit to a fine. But you don't own it. I mean that in case there's any rules or kind of more control, you are also potentially under the risk of being told what to do. And if you don't do that, you can't have access to your rental, or you can't do that. Or in case there is potential inflation in the price of rental for any reason, then you're gonna have to spend way more money. And this is possible because there's a lot of, the situation in Paraguay remains dynamic and there's a lot of investment. So I suspect that there could be inflation coming later on, but that's another topic. I don't want to digress, sorry, about that. So to me, it's a good model. So we went through the advantage. I want to go through some of the key characteristics of a micro community. And feel free to pause the video, feel free to re-listen to it, feel free to interact with me, just comment below, give me your perspective. It's important to talk, right? And what I'm saying right now, it's not just my view sometimes, it's my view that I have discussed with other people, factor in their comment, what they think is also relevant. So some of the characteristics of a micro community, if we were trying to describe it, let's imagine that we go to, let's say, Paraguay, which is a town in Paraguay, and we enter a micro community. What do we see? So we see a piece of land, pretty large one. We see some pasture, we see some tree. We see a river, we see source of water. So I'm talking about some of the criteria that we also target as people who want to build a micro community. We see people, but we don't see a lot of people. Let's imagine that this micro community has started, I don't know, maybe 5 months ago. So we see less than 10 people. We see a diversity of profile. I'm not a believer into recreating the setup of the West, meaning that Belgian people come with Belgian people, French people come with French people. Why? Because it just brings back sometimes this toxic environment of we have the same mindset, we behave the same way, and we do not welcome diversity on people who are not speaking our language and things like that. The best model are the model that promote diversity. You can see that, for instance, with Singapore. Singapore is one of the countries in the world where the government has kind of forced, almost mandated diversity. And it was good, extremely good for social integration. People interact, there's no racism, there's no, it was very positive. And so you would see diversity. You may see young people, you may see older people, people who speak different languages. You'd be very surprised here in Paraguay, actually, a lot of foreigners who arrive here speak multiple languages. Usually 3, 4, or 5. It's very surprising, or maybe it's just my network, but it's like, it's great to some extent. You would see private spaces and common spaces, and this is very important. And a lot of people would ask, yeah, where do I put my house and how does it works? So something that you would not see would be the legal setup. You would need to talk to the people to understand, okay, what legal setup did you use when you purchased or to purchase the property as a group with all those people, or only one person owned the land. I wouldn't go into a model where one person owns the land because I am dependent on that person. I can be kicked out at any time. And usually, although in the model where one person owns the land and let people in, they may want the good of the people. It's actually often the model of savior. If you know the triangle of Cartman, one of the angle is the savior profile, basically. And I can see that happening sometime in Paraguay, where people want the good of others, but it's like it just become savior, but mod, tyranny mod, basically. They're not really realizing it, but it's what's happening. So in terms of legal structure, there's different options available. I discussed that in another video. Free main. So you are all on the land title with a percentage. You could even split the land into different parcels and then have separate title for everyone. There's some constraint on doing that. You can use a company. The company purchase the land. You have a percentage in the company. For instance, the company A purchased the land. Then there's 4 people. They all have 25% of the company. This is equivalent to owning the land. And then it's a good model for exiting and entering, so that you can sell part of your shares. You can resell your share if you want to exit. Someone coming in can buy shares. And then there's the trust format, which is another format, a bit more complex, but that protects the aim and the objective of what is it we are creating. Okay. So you will need to discuss with the people to understand what legal setup they use. Coming back to the space, there is private space. So there's different ideas that can be adopted here, but the key point is people should have also their private space on the land. Do they own it? It depends on the legal structures that are being used, but it should be their private space. This is my space, I manage it the way I want, provided I'm respecting also the operating agreement with others. If you start putting loud music at night, and in the operating agreement is like basically there's something saying no loud music after 10 p.m. or whatsoever, you've got to respect the neighborhood, then that won't fly, that won't be working. And then you would see common spaces as spaces that are built for the people. And this is where a lot of synergy happens, because sometimes you don't need to. So imagine a setup where everyone has his own swimming pool. How, to a certain extent, it's redundant. It's not needed. Well, some people need their own space, their own swimming pool, but it's like in our context, we'd be happy to share that space and have actually a larger space. So, for instance, a natural swimming pool based on the river structure could be an option. Raising farm animals could be as a common space as well, so that we don't need to raise our own farm animal every one of us, but we have a common space and we can do that as a group. It's more efficient. We're learning from each other. We can divide tasks. It's almost like a very small village operating together. That's it. Right. That's why I call it sometimes good neighborhood. What we would see also, so we would see kind of an alignment between the people. Things are working, right? People know what is that they need to do inside the community, how they need to engage with others, how do they interact. We would see people able to resolve conflict as it happens, people who are communicating with each other. It's very important. We will see people with different skills. Someone can be skills around plants, for instance, aromatherapy or growing medicinal plants. Someone can be skills around managing a cow, managing goats, things like that. And we will see basically physically people who have a good well-being. So health of the mind, health of the body, happiness. This is what we would see. And it's basically the outcome that they are after. Now it's important to also say what we wouldn't see. We wouldn't see people arguing, friction. We wouldn't see people talking over other people. We would see people who listen to each other, who really operate well as a team. But to get there, it doesn't happen like that. You need to identify what are the key ingredients to build this. It might be more easy on my side because I work for 25 years in change management. So I work with large team, be it just small Scrum team, if you guys know Agile, or being extremely large team of 500 or 1,000 people. But at the end of the day, a team of, when you say a company or even a large teams of hundreds or thousands of people, is made of small teams. So if things go well at a very small scale, and then you know how to coordinate those small teams to create bigger and larger networks of teams, then things go smoothly. It's not too difficult once you know the recipe. And that was my job, to create recipes and identify what's working and what's not working. So that's a pretty long intro to micro communities. Feel free to ask questions, to reach out to me. Again, there's two paths here. There's one path where I want to build a micro community. And we have a plan to do that. There's people reaching out, potentially ready to invest together on a piece of land, I would tell you exactly where we stand and stuff like that for transparency purposes. And then the other path is like, how do we get started on micro communities? If you're interested into this model and want to create it, or if you're already living in Paraguay and have a bunch of resources, but you're not sure on how can I get those resources, those ingredients to work together, then I'm happy to advise, and feel free to listen to the video because you're gonna get tips on how you can do that, how can you make it happen and go toward the outcome that as a group you are after. Cheers.